My name is Caroline Søeborg Ahlefeldt, and I'm the CEO of Tomorrow, which is a new sustainability platform focused on action. Today, however, I have the privilege of being your host for this session with these three distinguished guests who will join in discussing one of the most important questions of today, which is how to drive sustainability in a world with Covid-19. So let me, without further ado, introduce the panel. First and foremost, I have to turn around here, and I think we'll start down from this end. We have Rolf Kjærgaard, who is the CEO of Vækstfonden. And for those of you who do not know what Vækstfonden is, I can just inform you that it is the Danish state fund financing small and medium-sized enterprises in close collaboration with banks and domestic and international private investors. When you look at your website, Rolf, it says that Vækstfonden discovers and develops the companies that Denmark cannot afford to miss out on. How is that? How did you come up with that?
Through many years of practice and a few really intensive weeks of dialogue around how to best frame and phrase what it is that we do. We need to be complementary to the market. We need to introduce types of financing, types of risk-taking into the market that the market cannot easily adopt and absorb itself in order to deliver something that would not otherwise have come. That's how we coined that phrase of providing financing for those companies that we cannot afford to miss out on.
It's well phrased. Thank you. And then we have Mathilde Jakobsen. You are the CEO and co-founder of Fresh.Land, an award-winning green tech startup with an innovative and disruptive model to the food industry. What exactly is it that you do?
So we have a digital platform that allows farmers to sell directly to consumers, and by doing so, we can shorten significantly the time from harvest till the final consumer, and that means reducing a lot of carbon emission along the way, because we have no packaging, no cold chambers, no ripening chambers. It's just in time delivered to the consumer.
I just went in on your website and decided to buy some tomatoes because they looked so delicious. So can you tell me the story of those tomatoes that I'm keen on buying? When will they be produced? What is happening from when I get this interest till I finally have them in my kitchen?
So when you go onto Fresh.Land and order a product like the tomatoes, they're actually still growing in the fields. And then on the weekend, we harvest and we ship off from that farmer. And then on Wednesday, you'll receive the fresh produce 4 days from harvest. But that also means that you have to plan a little bit in advance, because the products are not on a shelf in a storage. It's still there on the field. And sometimes we can have unforeseen events, like it could be the weather. And then we may have to change or adapt to the nature.
So you would be open to a suggestion that instead of showing me a box of tomatoes, you could have a webcam on the actual field showing me the tomatoes that could come to me in a week?
That's an excellent idea. I hope my team is
I'll charge you
listening
later.
in on that.
I'll charge you later.
Yes.
Okay, last and not least, we have Thor Harritshøj, who is the co-founder and CEO of Spirii. Am I pronouncing this correctly?
We pronouncing it Spirii.
Spirii, that's a beautiful pronunciation.
Yeah.
I'll stick to that. Spirii, which is what you do is that you grow sustainable solutions for transportation in Europe. That sounds very interesting. You provide simple, intelligent charging solutions for electric mobility. Simple, intelligent. What does that cover?
That's a beautiful sentence, right?
It is beautiful.
It is actually that the technology for driving sustainable is already there.
Yeah.
Most of sort of the bottlenecks for going in the sustainable future is actually in your mind. So when you try to choose to drive electric, it's in your mind whether you have the battery and the sort of the battery in the car to go where you want to go. But we have the solution via infrastructure, and we have the solutions via a simple digital app which allows you to be confident that wherever you go, you can drive electric and go there in time.
It sounds wonderful. I could have used that solution a few months ago, where I was driving around in Denmark in my new electric car, and I had a hard time finding a place where I could charge it. So if I had been buying into your solution, what would my experience have been like?
I think that when you buy it, it's actually for free, the app. You will find that you can more easily sort of adapt to the electric future of mobility in the sense that you can use your app as your one customer interface to charge and drive where you want to go.
Okay, amazing. Well, thank you and welcome to all three of you. What we'll be discussing today is how to drive sustainability in a world with COVID-19. So I guess the real big question here is, will the COVID-19 crisis delay or defer our investments in sustainability? And I guess there is one topic today that we have to touch upon, because I think we talked about it just before we went on air, that if we didn't pick it up ourselves, we would somehow come to it anyhow, which is the fact that this week a new Green Future Fund was funded and communicated to all of Denmark, and I think there's 25 billion Danish kroner put into this fund. How do you see that play into all this COVID-19 aftermath?
It's perfect timing. So I see it playing in very beautifully to driving and driving this whole movement toward green transition and toward developing new technologies and adapting and rolling out existing technologies, not only in Denmark but worldwide, but coming out of Denmark, coming out of all the experience, all the network, all the technology that have been developed and refined and scaled, or we're looking to scale in the future, to not only drive this movement toward a green way of being active, both as consumers and as businesses, but also to deliver in terms of new jobs, new exports, new tax revenues, all of those societal, socioeconomic benefits that also should come from such a government undertaking, which it is, when the government puts up 25 billion Danish kroner to drive this in a financially viable way. Mm-hmm. And that's what the Green Future Fund is all about. And we're both proud, privileged, and humbled at Vækstfonden to play a pivotal role in rolling out those funds in the early stages. And then our brothers and sisters in the other two underlying funds, the Export Guarantee Fund and the International Development Fund, are all about rolling out existing technologies beyond Danish borders.
So let me see if I get this correctly. So whatever size you have or however far you are, as long as you are working within sustainability with an interesting business idea, the Green Future Fund Denmark will be interesting for you, or?
Absolutely.
Yes.
So we're not already having this conversation with the company or with the entrepreneurs. We should start having it for sure, because now there's money available to be deployed toward building out new technologies and rolling out existing technologies. But then that leads me to another point, which is the one you were alluding to before, that all companies, whether they're working on green technologies or pretty much anything else, should start moving toward doing what they do in a sustainable way, because in the future, if your company is not sustainable, it's not going to be around anymore, because all your competitors will have made that transformation and you will have been competed out. So that means we need to roll this movement out throughout all industries, all geographies, and what a perfect place to start in Denmark.
That's amazing. And I guess looking at you two, I think what could be particular to your interest is that food and transport are mentioned as two of the sectors that are, singled out. So, Mathilde, when you were reading the news about the new Green Future Fund Denmark, were you thinking, whoa, that could be interesting for me?
Yes, I definitely think it could be interesting for Fresh.Land. I also think it could be interesting for like all the food entrepreneurs in Denmark as a whole, because I think what we have in Denmark is that we are quite innovative, we are quite critical thinkers, and we are good at coming up with the innovations. But especially in a time now, like with the COVID crisis, there is a contraction in the economy, and there may not be the same funding resources available, and they may also have a more short-term orientation, whereas a fund like the Green Future Fund has a really long-term orientation, because we need to act now. If we want to change our perspectives in the future due to the climate change, we need to act on it now, because the damage will be irreversible. So in that sense, I think it's a very good fit, that introducing a fund like the Green Future Fund, because it both has a long-term perspective and it provides the capital, the high-risk capital needed for these green startups to strive.
And Thor, from your perspective, how did you receive the news of this new fund?
I'm very glad, and I think it's a great opportunity for Denmark as a whole. I think there's a lot of great ideas out there, and there's a lot of great startups which actually need the funding. The funding which is dedicated here is for sustainability sort of development, and I'm already in a partnership with one of these sort of existing funds, and it has helped our business a lot, because you need some kind of funding to scale. Not only to scale sort of your current business, but to scale into other markets as well. And this fund is actually also to help Denmark sort of create jobs for the future. So in that sense, I think this 25 billion Danish kroner is a perfect opportunity for existing businesses, but also for all the businesses out there who are sort of dreaming about making sustainability as a new business environment for them. And I totally agree. This is a perfect opportunity for transforming our Danish market and our Danish businesses, because if we do it now, we have a big competitive advantage over other markets in the future.
Sounds amazing. It sounds like you have at least two people here that are in big favor of your endeavors, which is great, and count me in, by the way. Let me start another place. Now we have the money ready, which is great, and actually quite fast after this COVID-19 crisis that we're still in the midst of. So that's wonderful. So now we have to look at the availability of great business ideas, and so I'm looking at you and asking this crisis that has been and still is a crisis, but it has also have sort of the spark to create new incentives, new ideas, new possibilities. And how have you seen this crisis play into actually sustaining some innovative thinking? Have you been looking at it that way? Mathilde, would you start out?
First of all, the way the COVID crisis hit us, we were very fortunate. So we have a digital business. So in that sense, we saw a spur in demand. We could basically see a direct correlation between Mette Frederiksen going live with the news and then the spike in the demand on our web shop. And that was, of course, very fortunate for us. But there's a lot of food entrepreneurs and producers and farmers out there that are not as fortunate. We saw a lot of the farmers that were actually producing and selling to the restaurant and the hotels. They overnight almost lost their revenue. And they came to us, and we felt a big responsibility to use our access to market to benefit all these small entrepreneurs and farmers. So what we did was that we took them under our wings, and we said, okay, maybe your product is not the perfect fit, but this is a special time, so let's see how we can sell your product to a new segment, to the consumers. And that has been a huge success. Everyone we have worked with, we have been able to sell 80 to 100% of their production. So it has been quite a significant difference. It has meant that they haven't had to go and apply for the help packages. We had one of the farmers that came to us was Bygaard from the Southern Harbor in Copenhagen, and he produces mushrooms. And he had 200 boxes of mushrooms he had to get rid of. And he was like, what am I going to do? And we just said, no worries, we're going to find a way. And 2 hours later, he had sold all his mushrooms to our customers. And that was really powerful to see how we could help in that kind of situation. And what has now happened is that now when the restaurant business is opening up again, we have advance paid Bygaard 15 weeks of mushrooms, so that he could invest in building a new production facility and produce twice as many mushrooms, so he can both supply the restaurant business and the private consumers through Fresh.Land. So this is just an example of how thinking in new ways and new partnerships along the food supply chain can really benefit when a crisis like this happens.
So what you're also saying is that the COVID-19 crisis has also sort of changed your business model. You have also become a platform?
We was a platform before.
But a broader one?
Yes, we have taken on some products that are not directly related to fresh fruits and vegetables, simply because there were a need for it. And I like in general to think also as a consumer that wherever I put my money is going to help somebody through this crisis. And the way we could help at Fresh.Land was by providing our access to market to the consumers that were at home.
A very encouraging history. Thank you. Tor, how has the crisis affected your business, or has there been any positive consequences of the? Has it sharpened your focus? Has it changed something in your business model?
It has definitely sharpened our focus, but in the beginning, to be honest, it was a shock because we were in the scaling period where we had to scale. We had to have a lot of people out there meeting new people to scale our products. So in the beginning, especially the first month, it was a shock to our business. But it made us also think, how can we work differently, and how should we actually be out there with our product? And for the transportation, actually, it had the opposite effect in the beginning, because now we are trying to get rid of fossil fuel cars. There's not a lot of other cars in the market, so in the beginning, people didn't want to go in the public transportation. There were not a lot of electric cars, so they went back to the fossil cars. So it had the opposite effect. But right now, we are seeing the people actually are taking back their old habits of going into public transportation, also looking into electric mobility. But our way of thinking that we actually should work in a different sense, that we can actually scale our products via new ways of thinking, but also that our digital interface with the company is the most important part, and we can work on that one, is definitely the new business way of thinking. But in the beginning, it had the opposite effect. And I think it will take a while before people actually get out of this fear of COVID-19, which is actually hindering a bit for a while, that we go public and we go electric. But in the end, we will win, and we will have to change the business model.
You will conquer. Yeah. That's good to hear. Maybe you can help me understand a mystery. If we look at Norway, I think it's about 1/3 of their car fleet that is electric. And in Denmark, we're looking at what, 2-3%?
2%. In Norway, actually, it's not that much at the moment, but half of the cars being sold at the moment, and have been for a while, is electric. So they are already there where the market is sort of fueling itself. We are there where the public incentives for taxation and VAT has made it the right choice for the ordinary Norwegian people. They are there because the government in Norway had the courage to go for electric mobility quite early, but they had a lot of financial incentives, and that was because they had the financial strength, and that you can take it back to COVID. Now we have put a lot of money, a lot of billions into sort of making an effort to hinder that crisis. If we took just a percentage of that sort of effort, financial-wise, to put into transforming our transportation sector, we would sort of be successful very quickly. So it's great that actually if you take the chance and have the courage to do something, we can change quite fast.
Well, that's it, and we know. I would be very interested in hearing how we will. What is our chance of getting just on par or just close to the Norwegian success rate? And I mean, we have no choice. We have to electrify almost the entire fleet by within 10 to 15 years. So what would be your? I mean, now we are on air, and you can say whatever you like. No, politicians are watching. So what would be your advice? What should we do to just accelerate the growth of electric mobility?
I would not be afraid of putting some of our sort of financial strength of the Danish sort of state finances into this, because it will come back to us quite quickly. And you don't need all of the amounts which has been out there, which is sort of the cost for Denmark, is hugely overrated. Because as you see for Norway, as soon as you open the bottle and you just pour a little ketchup out, the rest will come by itself, because people will know that you can actually drive electric without any loss of comfort. You can drive electric without any loss of sort of finances. So I would just take the courage and use a little more effort, financial-wise, to start the market. You don't need money going out for infrastructure. There's a lot of companies with the help of sort of the investment funds are already there, but you need to give the people out there the incentive to go
And the
electric.
incentive is on the politicians' shoulders. Now I'm looking at Rolf because now he's got 25 billion along with some friends, and they have to deploy this money in the service of all of us and our sustainable future. But you need the politicians to play along. So what is your view on this electric mobility? You know, how does this interplay with the politicians' work seen from your chair?
We need to start by recognizing that the fact that we can now put 25 billion Danish kroner into the system is an act made by politicians.
Well, good point.
So that's part of that long-term effort, long-term determination to drive this move towards sustainability that we're seeing in Denmark. And Denmark really stands out in a global perspective, given that there's unanimous support behind this 70% reduction goal by 2030. And there's unanimous support behind a lot of the different efforts that are feeding into to moving Denmark and with Denmark the rest of the world toward a sustainable future. What we're charged with, going back to the 25 billion, is putting in long-term patient capital with an expectation from the owners, from all 6 million Danish citizens, that it delivers in 3 dimensions. One is that it drives green transition. So new and existing technologies become more profound and more pervasive. Second, it delivers in terms of creating new jobs, new exports, new tax revenues to keep funding and sustaining the Danish welfare state. And third, it has to also deliver financially. It has to be a financially viable model. So we cannot provide incentives that are laden with subsidies. What we're putting out there is long-term patient capital, and we're willing to really take that patience very seriously and wait for as long as it takes for some of these new technologies to mature and everyone starting to reap the benefits as well as the economic returns from that, and then feed it back into Vækstfonden and these other funds, so that the model itself keeps being circular and self-sustaining, which is the model that we have refined and worked with for 20 plus years at Vækstfonden. And it's that business model from the government that they're relying on, but that needs to go in line with other types of political
Yes, because if we
initiatives.
have to do what they did in Norway, and we have to, then subsidizing and making great ways of saying this is what you should do, this is the car or the cars you should be buying, and subsidizing that would be absolutely key, I guess. And that's not what you do is investing in the private companies, but what we need is also from a political point of view to do a little more than that. Or what are you saying, Tor?
I think it's a perfect match. We have the the funding for the businesses out there already, and the technology you need to scale. But at the same time, you need the political will to tax the polluters and make sure that you don't have to subsidize, but you have to make sure that all the pollution out there is being taxed the right way. There's a lot of state cost around health and these things, which is not in the the taxes out there already. A normal CO2 tax would actually help a lot. It would not mean a lot for the state, but it will mean a lot for the distribution on where you put your focus for a business. So you will have, with the CO2 tax on there, as an example, you will have that all the businesses out there will direct their focus for the future of that, and that will change a lot.
Thank you. Now we're running out of time here, and Mathilde, I wanted to bring you into the discussion about this. What is your look on transportation, and what does that matter to your business?
So for our business, it matters because it's a just-in-time food supply chain. We're working with land transportation because we are connecting the local food system, which is like within Denmark, if you're looking at the Danish market, and then the regional food system, which is like the southern Europe. So when the products are out of season in Denmark, then we can source from our Andalusian kitchen garden, which is in the south. So we are looking very much at land transport, and one of the things that would be on my wish list would be to have these trucks that are kind of heavy fuel trucks, to actually have them powered by electricity. And I feel that's really kind of the next milestone for the electric vehicle and mobility, because that would change whole sectors. And actually, if you look at the food industry, if you look at an orange, for instance, 72% of the carbon emission of an orange, that actually happens after harvest. And that is often because orange come from overseas markets, like it could be South Africa. It has to travel in cool storage. It has to be artificially ripened. It will be chemically preserved on the surface and so on. There's so much going along that journey, which makes it take very long and emit a lot of carbon emissions. And I think if we can somehow find better ways to transport faster, so that the products comes from more markets in closer proximity, and also by means that are more carbon neutral, then I think we can achieve these goals set out for 2030, but also for like the what's called neutral carbon emission goal in 50. But there has to be these kind of technology changes.
Wonderful. Well, thank you for that would be the final words of this debate. I think we could have gone on for a long time.
Yes.
We have a lot to talk about. But thank you also to you listening out there. This was a discussion on driving sustainability in a world with COVID-19. Thank you.